Just a little bit of a casual one. I'm sitting outside and I have been reflecting a lot in the last couple of days about the spiritual awakening journey. I did say in my previous videos that I've recently gone through a dark night of the soul, which is an extremely challenging kind of ego death period, where everything shifts and it does launch you into a spiritual awakening process. For those of you who have been through this or you're going through it now, you know that that is not as nice and pleasant as it sounds. It can be extremely challenging and it can feel extremely destructive, and in a way it is destructive because it's breaking away your ego. The ego death launches you into it, and the spiritual awakening journey continues that process. So it can be very painful, very challenging, and it can shift reality in your life as you know it in many, many ways. So I thought, once again, I find a lot of videos online because you go searching, this is part of the process, and you go searching, you go looking for information, and so much of what I find is AI generated content, which I'm sorry, but I don't trust my soul with AI generated content. Or some people, granted, who know what they're talking about, but they're kind of few and far between. So I just thought, once again, even though I don't claim to be an expert by any means, and this is not at all expert advice or anything like that, this is purely me just sharing my experience, because it can be a very lonely process. It can remove a lot of people from your life. It can separate you from a lot of people in your past, and a lot of friend circles, a lot of family members, relationships, whatever it is, as you kind of shed away the layers of your old self. So here's a few things that I have found that I am going through right now, and see what you think, and hopefully it can be of some use to you. So the first point is basically what I just mentioned before, that it can be very isolating, very, very isolating. So what you'll find is, as you start to, it's basically a vibratory ascension process. So you're shifting to a higher frequency. And what that can mean is it's very, very hard for you to integrate yourself into your circles, into your life, into your old life in the ways that you used to. On a vibrational level, you're vibrating at a different frequency to a lot of the things and people that you used to interact with, that you used to identify with, and a lot of that can be friends, circles, family members, whatever it might be, relationships, just interests, things that you used to be interested in, things that you used to care about, things that used to grab your attention. It could be political events, it could be whatever it is. And it's not to say that you stop caring about all these things, but it shifts. Like, you feel you can't resonate with these things or these people in the way that you used to, and you feel that just vibrationally it just doesn't click in with you when you do try to. So you will instinctively start to migrate away and gravitate away from those sorts of things or people, and they will start to gravitate away from you. And the reason is just because you're shifting frequency. So, and you do feel this kind of overwhelming need for solitude as well, because there's a lot of processing, a lot of shedding, a lot of pain, a lot of processing, a lot of weirdness that needs to be gone through. And it's not something, it's all internal. So it's not something that you can do, surrounded by people. So you do need a lot of solitude, but it can be a really isolating experience for that reason, especially if you're a person who was never comfortable with being in your own company. Fortunately, I already am that person, but it'll challenge you to your core if you're someone who's not comfortable being in your own presence. So that's the first thing that is really, really noticeable. The second is waking up every morning between the hours of 2 and 4. It's usually precisely 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. Now, it took me months to realize that this was happening as a pattern. I've had years of my life where I've had trouble sleeping for whatever reason. I wake up at 3 in the morning, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm anxious, I have too much cortisol in my body, too much stress going on, whatever it may be. This is different, because you don't wake up groggy, you don't wake up, randomly at sporadic times. You wake up at 2 or 3 precisely, and you wake up, bing, as if somebody has just snapped you awake, like snapped you out of a hypnosis state. You just wake up. And as I look into it more, as I reflect on it more, I realized that this is when they say that spiritually the veil between the physical and the non-physical worlds is the thinnest. So if anything needs to come through, if anything needs to be processed, if anything needs to come through from your higher self or from the higher vibrations, that's the time where you're going to receive a lot of that energy, a lot of that information, a lot of that vibration. So it took me weeks and weeks and weeks to figure out what the hell was going on, because it was so uncanny and I was just so awake. So I've started to lean into it, because I would find that I'd be awake for 2-3 hours at a time. I couldn't get back to sleep. So I've started to lean into it, after doing a little bit of research and finding out that, oh, actually this can be spiritually speaking, this is a really beneficial time of day. My body is being woken up for a reason. So I've started to lean into it and start to meditate, even if it's just 5 minutes, even if it's just sitting up in bed, 5-10 minutes, whatever you can do. And just allow myself kind of to talk to my higher self and say, please, just I'm here to listen. I'm here to receive whatever it is that I need to receive, or even just sitting in silence. So it can be really useful if that's happening to you as well. So that might be something else that you notice, because I definitely have. And it's not just sometimes, it's every single night, like clockwork. So the next one is that you feel everything. You develop this heightened sense of sensitivity and empathy, which is a beautiful thing and can be a challenging thing as well if you're not comfortable with feeling a lot of emotion. I made a video recently about feeling emotion, so you can check that out. But yeah, you will find yourself feeling everything, feeling a lot of emotion, which is a wonderful thing, because you're starting to become more, you're starting to develop a more heightened sense of everything being interconnected, of all people being a part of you, of all living things being a part of the same divine energy, the same collective energy. So that's a wonderful thing. But yes, also you can expect to feel a lot more. I had an experience recently where I was watching a YouTube video about this man talking about his near-death experience, and I just bawled my eyes out for about 45 minutes straight, for no reason. I was in a great mood, I was feeling great, just bawled my eyes out as he told his story, as if this story was happening to me. So this is something that I haven't had previously in my life. Yes, I might shed a tear, like here or there at a really emotional film or whatever it is, but this is a whole new level of floodgates being open. So that's another thing that I've been experiencing too, is and it can be positive too. It can be feeling high highs. You can really start to, when you connect with people, when you have this really beautiful connection moment, or a beautiful moment when maybe I'm painting, or maybe whatever it is, you can have this heightened sense of joy. But you can also have this heightened sense of sorrow, fear, empathy towards other people's pain. You're switched on and you're in a receiving state, and you feel things really, really strongly. The next one is that small talk becomes nearly impossible. I mean, it's really, really tricky, because you realize when you go out into the world, we really need small talk. Like, in order to be able to go, I don't know, walk around public or whatever it is, like, and even to maintain a lot of relationships and friendships, like you might have like a lot of small talk. You may not have realized previous to, a spiritual awakening process, that how much small talk was required of your life, until you became completely incapable of it. I was never a big fan of small talk. I was never very good at it. I was never one of those people who was like, oh, tell me about work. Like, I want to talk more about your soul. Like, how's your soul doing? Or tell me something, let's talk about something about, let's get our emotions flowing, or whatever it is, or even laugh. But like, work and things like that, I've never been a person who wants to talk much about that, or the weather, or whatever it is. But when you're going through this process, through this spiritual awakening or ascension process, whatever you want to call it, small talk starts to feel so foreign that you can basically not even force yourself to do it convincingly for more than 10-20 seconds. At least I can't. And you actually will just avoid all of those situations altogether where you may have to engage in small talk. I've also found that I will I no longer have that inhibition of kind of just ending a conversation or moving away from a conversation if I feel, with respectfully, of course. I'm not walking around just ignoring people, but you know, you can subtly and respectfully just remove yourself from situations or avoid situations where you will have to have those sorts of conversations that are very, very superficial, very kind of, they feel very shallow, very just meaningless. There's nothing wrong with them, there's nothing innately bad about them, but they have no substance to them. So you might find yourself just really avoiding those situations. That's what my experience has been, at least. The next one is you have an insatiable thirst for knowledge, because this thing feels so weird. Like, you can feel your reality changing. And that can be like, I might be making this sound like really fun and exciting. It can be really exciting because you feel like your whole world is shifting. You feel like reality is not the same, right? But it can also be really terrifying. So you do start to really kind of almost frantically start searching for information. Like, I literally cannot watch anything now just for entertainment. Everything that I look at has to be informative. It has to be everything that I look at, consume, read, you know, watch on YouTube, on this platform, or, you know, even I can't just put on a movie and get involved in fiction, or I just can't do it. So I have this insatiable kind of thirst for knowledge, and there's a part of you that just wants to learn more, gain more information, just learn as much about this process as possible. And I don't know if that's just something that happens automatically, or if it's happening because, you know, your mind is trying to grasp what's happening, because it feels weird. It feels weird. Like, this experience doesn't feel like anything you've experienced before. It does feel very strange. Sorry, I'm sitting outside here and have a lot of noisy cars. So there's that part of you that really wants to learn as much as you can, as fast as you can, to kind of learn how to navigate this process, which is one of the reasons why I'm making this video now. Not that I'm probably saying anything that hasn't been said a million times, but I think a lot of it is just the comfort of hearing somebody else's process and hearing that somebody else's experience going through this, because, like I said, it can be really daunting. And I'm someone who receives this kind of spiritual, you know, these sorts of topics, like, I receive them really readily, but it still can be really confronting. It still can be really isolating, and it can be really, really overwhelming. Next one is you have this real urge, this real sense to want to be in nature, or close to nature, or looking at nature, or, you know, having your feet on the ground, or whatever it is, something to do with getting closer to the earth, getting closer to nature. You do tend to, like I said, remove yourself a little bit more from people. Not all people, of course, but you tend to withdraw quite a lot. But at the same time, there's this pull to be in nature, around nature. And I think that's just going to be happening as a gravitational pull, because if your vibration is becoming higher, if you're vibrating on a higher plane, on a higher field, you know, you're going to be attracted to these higher vibratory things, which is basically all the, you know, the great things in the world, nature, music, certain types of music, healthier foods, like those sorts of things might attract you more. So higher vibratory things, and nature is, you know, that's where the highest vibrations are. So it's very healthy, it's very healing. And like I said, it's not a glamorous and it's not an easy road. So that healing, healthy energy is something that you just automatically are drawn to, even if you don't realize it. But yeah, you will definitely feel the pull toward being in nature and really appreciating in a way that you probably haven't quite before. I mean, you really, when you're in nature, you start to feel its heartbeat, its vibration, a lot more. For me, at least personally, I feel it a lot more. I connect in way quicker than I used to. I used to be a lot more distracted, a lot more in my mind, and it would take a little while for me to really, you know, slip into it. Whereas now it's really like I'll be in a natural setting, and it just you feel like you slip into it immediately, and it really, you start to harmonize with it immediately, and it can be incredibly healing, because yes, there is a lot of challenge, a lot of pain that comes with this process. And here I should just mention as well that the ego death launches you into this process, but the ego death is still happening throughout this process, at least for me. You know, if you watch my previous video about the ego death or the dark night of the soul, I talked about how painful it is and how you have to really face these parts of yourself. that you've carried around for your entire life or maybe lifetimes. And you're still, as you're going through this process, even though I'm out of the darkest dark night, these pieces of you, your pieces of your ego, these pieces of your old self are still dropping away. So these waves of pain and waves of joy will come over you, and they will catch you off guard and really kind of surprise you. So this is, I don't want this to sound like, I feel like sometimes when people talk about the spiritual awakening, a lot of the time it's either kind of skimmed over how difficult it is, or it's all about how difficult it is. And I find in my experience, it's somewhere between the two. Like you're straddling two worlds, like you're oscillating, which brings me to my next point. Next point is that you don't know from one day to the next who you're going to be. I mean, like how you're going to feel, what state of being you're going to be in, what state of mind you're going to be in. Because for me, I just find that I oscillate. It's like a pendulum that swings from, joy, centeredness, calm, inner peace. Sometimes it can be blissful, sometimes it's just quiet and centered and solid, and this sense of optimism, and you're starting to reconnect with your life force in a very new way. And then other times you just get these waves of fear and existential dread, not just like a little bit anxious. I mean, like anxiety, like that end of the world anxiety will just wash over you. And for no reason, maybe you've been feeling great for like, I don't know, like 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you get like 3 days of just existential dread or crippling anxiety. I find it so hard to make any plans to move forward on things for my business, to actually lock in dates for anything, to organize travel, anything like that, because I will have a few good days or weeks, good, bad, whatever you want to call it, but good. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, I'm a whole different person for a few hours, days, or weeks. And you just don't know. You just don't know when that's coming. So you feel like you're kind of walking on quicksand, and you're kind of really like a pendulum swinging back and forth. So it can be really hard. And I know, from what I've heard, from what I've learned, from all of my incessant learning, they say that you do move through this. This is just a stage, and you do move through this. But honestly, that's the one part that I won't miss, is not knowing from hour to hour, day to day, how I'm going to be feeling. And yeah, it can be really challenging to live your life that way. So the sun's almost gone down now. I'm going to wrap this up. So I hope that you found this helpful. Please, leave a comment below if you can relate to any of this, or if you have any questions. I'd be happy to share more. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I just feel it brings me so much comfort personally to hear other people's stories, and to hear people talk about how they've gone through things, how they have navigated things. It can be an incredibly isolating process, but it can also be just incredibly wonderful as well. So it's somewhere in between. So I hope that you found this kind of useful, or some kind of use or comfort in some way. And please, until next time, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.